Good morning. 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 Or wherever / however this is going to find you. It is Wednesday, July 8th when I'm recording this. In fact, if you've been with us for quite a bit of time, usually the show is audio, but today I've added in some video. I thought it'd be good since we were going to sit across from each other and kind of debrief on what's going on in life. So here is a proof of life. I've put zero effort into my appearance. In fact, I'm still wearing the clothes that I fell asleep in on the couch last night, which I'm sure you can relate to. But a piece of me feels like you probably don't care how I look or what I'm wearing. So I figured if I can meet you where you are, you can meet me where I am this morning. So thank you for joining us. Welcome to This Morning with Tiff Potter. This is your daily companion audio friend designed to keep you company while you do the human things that are still required of you every day. Things you want to know, need to know, you might use them later, topics of conversation that you might sit with, send off to a friend, but always at least something to walk away with that you can use in an awkward encounter somewhere. First date or with a coworker. It's rooted in Cincinnati, but made for wherever you are, and episodes typically come out around 8 a.m. Weekday morning, so I'm super happy that you're with us. I will give you the full debrief on this job, especially if you found out through Instagram, or maybe you've been curious in the past month as I talk about what it's like to transition from unemployment to new job and career changes and all of that. So we'll give you kind of a layout on that. I also want to talk about potentially if you find yourself in a place of transition, what are some of the things that have worked for me? What are some of the tips, whether it's career transition or life transition? So we'll get to that as well. And that's a good place to start. First and foremost, before we go any further today, checking in on you. What's going on in your world? What's top of mind? Big thing in my group text yesterday, two things. I got a voice note from my girlfriend that said, I cannot believe that we are in the second half of the year. Like officially, right? You work from January all the way up to the 4th of July, and then it kind of symbolically marks the second half of the year. So anything that you had been working on, dreaming about, starting somewhere in the beginning of the year or spring to where you are now, how are you doing with that? What's going on? A girlfriend of mine moved into a new house on her own. So she's been, navigating that sort of change in her life. I started this show 6 months ago and when I was unemployed. And as of 1 month ago today, I started a new job. So what is that for you? And it's been a while since I've gotten a voice note. So please join our This Morning community by searching at the Tiff, 2 F's Potter, like the wizard on Instagram. And then go ahead and leave me a voice note where you're at in your life. I'd love to hear from you. The second way to participate and be a part of our community is by simply commenting what your name is and what neighborhood the show found you in wherever you're listening. I love that question. What's your name? What neighborhood are you in? So 2 ways to get involved. What's top of mind for you? What's going on? It's the summer, it's wedding season. If you're a parent, you're juggling camp. If you are single, these are like the fun summer dating nights where you go out. There's lots of activities to do. There's that excited feeling. I started dating my boyfriend now this time last year, and I just remember all like the fun things that are available to you when you start dating someone in the summer that are usually outside. A lot of World Cup games happening, although unfortunately the US is knocked out. So keep me posted. What's top of mind for you? Let's talk about the job. I had made this announcement on the show first about a month ago saying, hey, I need a little grace because I'm transitioning into a new job / new career. And some of these episodes might be late, shorter. They might not show up at all, but just know that I'm right alongside you every day doing the human thing, right? And I just recently made this announcement on Instagram 2 days ago that I have officially accepted a job as host and producer of Live Shopping with Pure Romance, which is a company that is also rooted here in Cincinnati. So I'll get to what all of that means and, what it's like to go back to work and some of those tips here in a hot second. But I was honored by how much support and love came from not just this morning's community, but also the little community that we've built online together. There is something about people rooting for you and cheering you on that you might have never met in person. It's so heartwarming. In fact, the Cincinnati Enquirer wrote an article about it. They wrote it. The local press. I was like truly honored that, that people care, that people are paying attention, that people are rooting for me, and I'm rooting for you. You're not in a vacuum, especially if you listen to this show. So thank you to the Inquirer, and thank you to you for all of your support. So this job was brought to me at the end of April by somebody in my inner circle that already works for the company. And if you're not sure what Pure Romance is, it was started a long time ago by a woman named Patty Brisbane, and it's sex toys, it's sex, it's intimacy, it's products, and that company did incredibly well here for a very long time. It operated under a consultant MLM structure. Then some things changed, or long before I started working there, and now it's direct to consumer. And what's happening with direct to consumerism, not just in this industry, but across a lot of industries, is live shopping. So if you're like, what is live shopping? Yes, it's exactly what you think it is. It's HSN, it's QVC, which were TV shows that I used to fall asleep to on the couch. So it's kind of iconic. I used to say when I was a receptionist at Kiss 108 in Boston, when I had just gotten out of college, my best friend Owen and I were like, let's work on QVC. We would literally practice like what it would be like to sell something on HSN and QVC when we were bored in the office at our desks. And now it's kind of coming full circle. And I want you to pay attention to your full circle moments in life, and feel free to comment or leave me a voice note, because I'd love to hear from them. And so as we move into social selling and live shopping, what we're doing is creating community and conversation online, but the byproduct is selling a product, if that makes sense. And so when I went in there, I was immediately blown away. I was like, wow, like, not only are we selling a product, but we're also selling conversation, education, connection, and community, all through the lens of intimacy. There are 3 things that happen in your life: guarantee, death, taxes, and sex. No matter who you are and where you are in this life, whatever stage you're in, whatever gender you identify with, intimacy is one thing that you will always participate in, whether it's on your own or with a partner. And as somebody that's always been very sex curious, I was like, I love the idea of taking my curiosity with this subject, my ability to make people feel seen and heard and looped into a conversation, bring them in. Let's learn about it. Let's talk about it. We talk about the fact that we're education and connection and pleasure without shame. And so I walked into this place and I was like, oh my God, this is it. I had a gut feeling about this job. So this is the end of April. And by the way, this is full television studio setups in this office that I walk to every day, which I love, by the way. And in my head, the way that my brain works is I can see something and realize that I can make it into something. And so as a media personality that's worked specifically and primarily in audio with radio and whatnot, I said, this is my opportunity at 36 years old in 2026 to learn what it's like to work on TV and work on camera. I don't have that experience, and it does not come natural to me, and I do feel like I have a very big learning curve on that one. Big time. And if you've watched some of our live shopping shows, you'll hopefully see the growth in that. This, where it's just you and I, totally different ballgame, right? This is something I'm familiar with. TV, totally different. So I saw that, and I saw the opportunity to learn what e-commerce was like. E-commerce and how entertainment and e-commerce play in the same house. So I love that I get to assist in the entertainment element while they teach me the e-commerce element. So that's kind of what led me. And I ask you the same question too. Has your gut ever revealed something to you where you're like, this just feels right? I encourage you to walk down that road. And that's happened to me a few times in my life. One of them is when I chose the college I went to, LaSalle University in Boston. The second was when I came to Cincinnati for my first radio audition in 2019. I said, something about this feels right. And now I hope that this finds me again. I hope my gut doesn't fail me. But it's been very, very cool. It's been very interesting. So that's the baseline of what the job is and what the company is and why I chose to work there. And I'm so grateful. All I wanted was something that made me feel aligned and alive. And I thought that this was a really cool place to use a craft and a skill that I've built for the last 10 or 15 years of my life in a new way that sustains me. I was always afraid that I would lose those skills if I ever left radio. Like radio is a very unique thing. Where would I use this again? So I'm so happy that the universe and God has been on my side with that one. So that's what it is. I show up to the first day of work, and immediately upon everyone's desk is a different dildo. Now, granted, this is a sex company. Like, these are all products that I have never put my hands on. I've never talked about with my friends. I've never even seen some of these things. And there are all sorts of intimacy products, creams and enhancement creams. Now that I have become not the expert, but I've got a month in. We're a month in. We're in the 1 month anniversary. All sorts of toys and products for different genders. And I have to figure out, one, what the names are of these things. Like, what is Dark Knight versus, Sweet Bee? Those are two different toys, by the way. Right? So I got to learn the names. I also have to learn a way to talk about these things that in a way that feels comfortable to me, because I am not the expert here by any means. I feel like a foreign alien. And now I'm in front of camera. And so I just tried to lean in. I tried to lean in and just go with what felt authentic to me, which is I'm the curious girl in the back that has maybe heard about some of these things, never used them, and feels like they're probably not that good at sex because they don't know anything about them, but is willing to learn. That's how I'm showing up every day on camera. So if you identify with that, why don't you come on over to pureromance.com and watch some of our live shopping, because it is fascinating to learn and work alongside some of the girls that I work with that are product experts or have worked with the company for a long time. They know so much about these products. I find myself just sitting there like I'm supposed to be hosting it and I'm just staring at them. Camera, totally different ballgame. You've got to be more physically animated, and you also have to speak faster. Where in radio, I had cameras on me, but not in the same capacity. I find myself staring and I'm like, oh, we have to be presentable. Like, shout out to Robin Roberts of Good Morning America. Been doing this for a long time, seasoned veteran. I've been watching a lot of HSN, a lot of QVC, a lot of Whatnot, which is another social selling platform. What else have I been watching? I've been watching it all. I'm picking up on some of these like OG QVC ladies that are wearing the white capri and the gold bangles, and they've got the white French manicure, and they're like, this, you should buy this, ring set or this sweater. I'm watching a lot of QVC in my house. I'm loving it though. But yeah, it is interesting to go from an industry where you can, of course, talk about sex on radio, but you certainly have to find a tasteful way to do it. And I'm not saying that what we don't do is tasteful, but we just call it what it is. We just say C-ring and sex and pleasure and moist and all sorts of things. Like, we just talk about it as it's in a natural habitat, because it is natural. So that's been an adjustment. Just the subject in general, the products, learning those, and then finding a way to talk about them in a way that makes me sound like I'm not just the girl that's like, yeah. You should use this, But it's cool. The office is cool. The people are cool. And so every day I'm working on how to build this program and how to build this, because I believe so deeply in, wow, like if I'm curious, someone else is curious. And so, yes, and I think that this industry is very interesting, because not just are we selling the products that you can use, we're also inviting you to be a part of a community where you can learn, explore, experiment, and talk to somebody, that feels like, okay, cool. Thanks for introducing me to that. So that's the baseline of the job. That's what I do every day. I wake up, at least once a day, I joke with my friends that I have to wash lube off my hands. I'm not kidding. But we'd love to have you, at some point. This entire show won't be about this all the time, but I'm just giving you a debrief on what this new job has been like and, kind of how it all came to fruition if you're a details person. But if you would like to watch some of our live shopping and maybe this is speaking to you, go to pureromance.com, okay? Anyway, so yeah. If you find yourself in a season of job transition, and I think of my friend Bobby, actually, who also lost his job in radio a few months after I did, and he's in the midst of figuring out what's next for him. What does he want more of? What does he want less of? And just job searching in general, I find myself encouraging him and thinking back to what would have helped me if I was in that position. And it's really, first of all, checking in on your friends. If you have a friend that is in job transition, check in on them, because depending on what type of personality they are thinking a lot of things. Am I worthless? Am I useless? Like, what's my purpose? What's my passion? So check in on your friends and listen to them. As someone like you that now has a full-time schedule, you've got stuff going on, and someone that's unemployed might not have as much going on, but they are still worth it. They're still worth it in your friend group to be like, tell me what you did with your unemployed day. I would love to hear more, So check in on your friends. If you find yourself in that unemployed space, I think this is true for not just this, but also dating and relationships. You have to get really clear on yourself and what you want. You have to spend time working on what makes you feel aligned and alive. That also goes for dating. And I think that translates. I learned that world, and I think that also translates to the job market. If you're just casting your net and taking whatever, is going to be different than saying, hey, what do I want more of in my life? What do I want less of? What's my value? What do I bring to the table? What feels right? If you are this type of personality. Now, I've had some people in my life that just want a paycheck and that's it. They want to clock in, clock out. They don't want to make work their life. That's okay. I'm someone that needs to feel aligned with what I'm doing to really show up fully for that company. So you have to spend time figuring out what makes you feel aligned and alive mixed with your skills, worth, and value. And then you kind of start walking down that road. There are bumpy times, but you will 100% make it through, and you will reflect back and say, what is meant for me will not pass me. And that's like some of the tangible work that you can do. Second tangible thing that you can do is make sure that you have a story to tell. What is your story? Are you telling that story on LinkedIn, on your social profile? If you storytelling is the number one thing I would say right now in the world for brands, marketing, people, all of it. What's your story? Which one are you trying to tell? And are you telling that story on the major platforms where people find you and show up for you? Because if you have the story to tell, and I can always help you with this, send me a message. If you have the right story, this is what I started my when I was an entrepreneur in the first half of the year. I found that, it's not for me full time, although I still do it on the side. I am an audio storyteller, and I help people and brands define their voice in their message and their story using their voice, because this is what's going to help you connect with the right people in the right places. People are going to start thinking of you. You're going to be top of mind, but you got to get your story right. To get your story right, you got to get yourself right. So those are two things. And then that third thing, if you're looking for it, is you really have to get uncomfortable with the uncomfortable, which is putting yourself out there. And networking events, that might be your thing. I only went to one or two of them, but I just connected with the people in my life, my circle. I spent time with them. I asked them questions. Okay. And the way that I live my life, here's the ultimatum that I will leave you with this morning. If you don't know what to do with your life or whatever's going on with you, if you're lost, get curious and then follow the breadcrumbs. Get curious, ask questions of yourself, of the people around you, of different industries. Get curious and then follow those breadcrumbs, and they will lead you to where you're supposed to go next. Keep me updated on that journey, okay? And I am sending you all the good energy, good vibes, and good juju. What is meant for you will not pass you. Thanks so much for being a part of this morning's community. I hope to introduce you to the things, maybe that you're curious about as well in the intimacy space, although this show won't be about that. But I appreciate you. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for inviting me into your life. Thanks for following along. And if you liked anything that we talked about, or if you want to send this off to a friend, send the link off. Subscribe, be a part of our community, comment. You've got a friend in me. Okay? Thanks for inviting me into your life, into the places that you love. I'll see you right back here tomorrow.